Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of The Log Show here on YouTube. I'm your host, Logan, here. I am back after a little 2 week hiatus. Some things happen, real life happen, Um, don't really want to talk about it, but I am back, and I am back in perfect timing because there is so much going on, especially tonight at 8 o'clock. The Knicks have made back Eastern Conference Finals, and Game 1 is tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers as they won Game 7 on Sunday against the Detroit Pistons in Detroit. So Spida comes to New York to play the New York Knicks in Game 1 tonight. That is going on. The Yankees going up and down. They lose the Subway Series, have a nice comeback win last night. I will talk so much about it all. NFL schedule was released. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? But tonight, I cannot wait with the Knicks finally back in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Garden will be popping tonight. The Garden will be electric. Outside of the Garden will be electric. The city of New York will be electric. It's the biggest Knicks series I could remember, honestly, probably in my entire lifetime. We get the matchup of Jalen Brunson versus Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell was a target the Knicks were trying to get before the Cat trade, even after the Cat trade at one point. Right before he went to Cleveland, there were a whole lot of rumors of Spida being a New York Knick, and Donovan Mitchell ended up going to Cleveland now with James Harden, who they got at the trade deadline, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and that team trying to get over the hump. And then on the other side of things, there's the New York Yankees. Like I said, on a skid, they have their own problems that I would label as Anthony Volpe and Austin Wells and the relief pitching. But we'll talk about all of it. Like I said, NFL schedule was released, so maybe a little bit later we'll talk about ups and downs. Who has the easiest schedule? Who doesn't have, that difficult? Teams that we could see surprise because of their strength of schedule. And on the flip side, teams that were maybe really good last year that we are now seeing maybe possibly have a little bit of a fall off due to now having a harder schedule. So we'll talk about that as well, as we are now in June and the NFL season is slowly upon us. OTAs are happening. Rookie mini season is happening. The draft has happened. So much has happened. So much. But you guys can tell what I will talk about first because I am excited for tonight, and that is the Knicks at home versus Donovan Mitchell and the Cleveland Cavaliers in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And first thing I want to talk about with this Knicks team is they have impressed throughout the playoffs. I've been so happy with a lot of players. Mikal struggled at the beginning of the Atlanta Hawks series. Mikal struggled at the beginning of the Atlanta Hawks series. He's picked it up since then. Josh Hart's picked it up since then. I've stood by the argument that OG Anunoby might be the best 94-foot player that the New York Knicks have on the court throughout the playoffs, and now he is coming back tonight. There is so much to look forward to with this New York Knicks team. They feel like a team ready for a finals appearance compared to last year against the Pacers. I'll be honest, it didn't really feel the same against the Pacers last year that I kind of have the feeling of this year. We've been here before, we're comfortable, and we can now go make that next step and go make a finals appearance. A trend that you have seen since I believe it's 2021 in the Eastern Conference as well is the team that has lost the Eastern Conference Finals in the year prior had made the NBA Finals the next year. It started with the Miami Heat back in 2022, I believe it was. And then you had they end up beating the Boston Celtics the next year, who end up beating the Pacers the next year, who end up beating the Knicks last year, and now we have the Knicks versus the Cavs, which also opens up the whole thought of could the Cavs now take that next step next year with maybe going to get Giannis for Evan Mobley. So many rumors going on, but let's get back to the focus of Game 1 tonight and just a series that is so important for the New York Knicks, and in a way that they've been playing so well. They're winning in a New York brand of basketball, a style of basketball that has propelled them so far. Even under Tom Thibodeau, I loved that Mike Brown, when he took over this team, didn't try to take over and reestablish a new identity. He took the identity of the New York Knicks and made it better and made it deeper and just extended it throughout the entire roster, of instead of it extending through 6 to 7 players deep. You now have a team that is a lot deeper than the team of last year, and you're sitting here with a team that is playing exceptionally well defensively, with 8.5 steals per game, 5.5 blocks per game. They're doing great on the boards. They have over 10.5 offensive rebounds per game as well. The team has just playing exceptionally, and a big point of that, even though we maybe not have had him for the last 2 games of that Philadelphia series, has been the play of OG Anunoby. Like I said, in my opinion, OG Anunoby may have been the best player of the New York Knicks playoff run so far. Yes, he might not be the leading scorer of the team, but when it comes to both sides of the basketball, when it comes to his defensive prowess, the way that he's been shooting at such a good clip, 61.9, practically 62% at 61.9%. He's just under 54% from 3. He's averaging 7.5 rebounds per game in his 8 games played. 2 steals per game, over 20 points per game. He has been a consistent threat for the New York Knicks throughout this playoff run and has been such a big player. But now when you come to the Cleveland Cavaliers, you are clearly having what is going to be your hardest challenge of the playoffs, a team that is a lot deeper with Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, all of these dudes just throughout this entire roster, the Cleveland Cavaliers, not even just counting their, the starting 5 of, like I just said, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Max Strus. You also get people like Dean Wade out there. Like I just said, Max Strus is big off the bench for them. You have a lot of other big pieces for them that aren't those star players that you necessarily think of for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And as we approach tip-off tonight, you can clearly take a step back as a Knicks fan and know we've had 9 days off, and this is a team that just got out of a physical series and is going to have a physical game of basketball tonight. If there is a game for the Cleveland Cavaliers to steal, it's game 1 tonight. So the Knicks have to come out prepared and ready. Jalen Brunson has to be going, because this is a team that can guard him consistently up and down that roster. I would hope, if you get lucky, you get the James Harden matchup, but that's not going to happen. You're going to see Donovan Mitchell more likely than not matched up on a Jalen Brunson defensively. And Donovan Mitchell is not, he's not as much as a cone defensively as some of these high-scoring players are. And Donovan Mitchell's a threat offensively, obviously. So how we guard the Cleveland Cavaliers coming off the floor, I'm very interested to see tonight how Mike Brown approaches these matchups, because I think the obvious idea is you have I think the obvious point is OG Anunoby on Donovan Mitchell. You have to have your best defender on their best scorer, as long as it's not, Rudy Gobert on Jalen Brunson type of matchup. You know what I'm saying? They're players that, OG Anunoby is not outpaced and, getting beat consistently on the perimeter by a player like Donovan Mitchell. He can play well defensively against him, but it's those other matchups. It's the matchups that we're going to have against an Evan Mobley. It's how is Josh Hart or Mikal Bridges going to do against an Evan Mobley? How is Jalen Brunson going to do against a James Harden and those types of players? It's going to be very, very, very interesting to see. I mean, Brunson has had an exceptional playoffs. I want to say he's averaging just over 27 points per game. He's averaging, if I remember correctly, 6.5 or 6 point assists per game. He's shooting at a 48% clip. He is playing well. He needs to continue this scoring, the scoring that he is able to do at a high clip. We can't have those games where he's having 20 points per game. I think a lot of people feel like Jalen Brunson is having one of the worst playoffs than we're used to Jalen Brunson necessarily having. But that doesn't mean that Jalen Brunson is not playing well. A lot of other, on First Take, they did it this morning. They did it on First Things First a few days ago. They had the comparison of Jalen Brunson's stats this playoffs to SGA's, and they're almost exactly the same. And people were saying that SGA, as we saw last night, SGA is an exceptional player, as we saw in that Spurs OKC game, and we'll talk about whether we feel like the Knicks can beat the victor of that series when you saw that grueling double overtime win by the Spurs last night. But like I was saying, you need Jalen Brunson to have these 27-point games, but you also need OG Anunoby to come back immediately from this hamstring rupture and play that same brand of basketball that he was playing in Game 2 against Philadelphia, in Game 6 against Atlanta when we won by 50, and all of those. Those are they have to come out tonight prepared, the New York Knicks. They have no excuse at all. When you look at this Cavs team, like I'm saying, you look at a team with Donovan Mitchell, who's averaging 25 points per game in the playoffs. Evan Mobley, 17 points per game and 8 rebounds in the playoffs. Harden's averaging 20 points per game in the playoffs. Yeah, he might not he might have a few games like both of these past Game 7s where he just goes inept and just disappears. But he's had good games in these playoffs. He had a great Game 6 against Detroit. He's had good games in these playoffs. And then, like I said, you also have players like Dean Wade, Jared Allen, Max Strus. This Cleveland team is so much deeper than Philly or Atlanta that we have played so far. So you have to come out ready and prepared. And the players that aren't the star players have to play well. Like, that to me is the biggest matchup of the series. It's not Donovan Mitchell versus Jalen Brunson. It's not James Harden versus OG Anunoby. Because I feel like those four are going to produce in their own ways throughout this series. It's Jared Allen and Evan Mobley and Max Strus and those players for Cleveland compared to for the Knicks with Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges. If we're going to put Evan Mobley there for the Cavs, we'll say Karl Anthony Towns for the Knicks, Jordan Clarkson. How do these players that aren't necessarily your star players play? You have Josh Hart right now averaging 9 rebounds in the playoffs. You have Mikal Bridges shooting at 60% in the playoffs so far, averaging 13 points per game. But on the flip side, they have players like Max Strus who can go off from behind the arc. He's averaging... He's attempting over 5 threes a game so far throughout those 2 grueling series that Cleveland has been. You have Jared Allen averaging almost 2 blocks per game and 7 rebounds. Evan Mobley also averaging almost 2 blocks per game. This is a physical team that was able to just beat a Detroit team that you have to remember, if we're going to count the regular season, as confident as I've been in the Knicks throughout, and you guys could go back and say, I've never been worried about Cleveland, and I'm not worried about Cleveland to this point. But when you look at how the Knicks have played basketball and what happened in the regular season, the Detroit physicality is what got to them time and time again with the Detroit Pistons this season. It was a point that really had the Knicks struggling, was how physical that Detroit Pistons team was. And that Detroit Pistons team, if you looked at the way the Game 7 went, Cleveland won by 30. Detroit got tired. They got beat up. They got out-physicaled by this Cleveland team. So if you're going to bet on your physicality that just got you to sweep Philadelphia, that got you to have that young Atlanta Hawks team that was, vibing after 2 big wins off of CJ McCollum's big game winners, and you were able to out-physical them and tire them out, you're not going to be able to do that quickly, and it's not going to happen like that to this Cleveland team. If you're going to do it, you have to set the tone tonight and be able to out-physical them after 9 days rest, after they have had, like I said, 2 grueling 7-game series against the Toronto Raptors and then now against the Detroit Pistons. They have battled throughout the playoffs. Get them tired fast. It's what we talked about with the Knicks last year, is they went through that grueling series with the Boston Celtics. They went through that series beforehand last year. I'm blanking on who they played in the first round last year. The New York Knicks or against the Pistons. They had a grueling 6-game series against the Pistons. Then had a grueling 7-game series against the Boston Celtics. And then throughout that Pacers series, you saw if it went deep, they got tired. You can't bet on that with this Cavs team because you would have thought that against Detroit. You would have thought they got tired after that battle against Toronto, and they didn't. And Detroit was the team that got tired and got out physical. So this Cleveland team is more, yes, I'll admit it. They're more of a threat than I thought they were coming into the playoffs. Am I confident? Yes, but I want to be a realist. I haven't seen game one, and what I've seen out of Cleveland in their past 2 series is a lot better than what I was expecting. You know, when they went to 7 with Toronto, even though, yeah, the Pistons went down 3-1 to Orlando, I thought they were going to get run out of the building by the Pistons. I thought they were going to get run out of the building by Detroit. And like I keep saying, they out-physicaled them. You had Donovan Mitchell have a 40-plus point game. You had James Harden drop 30-plus points in Game 6. It was too much for Detroit. And one thing I talked about when, you look at those types of games that can swing momentums in a series like a Donovan Mitchell 40-plus point game and those types of games in a series, let's go back a few years. When Donovan Mitchell was traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think it was very open to the public that he wanted to be a New York Knick. And he's not. And I think he's going to want to come out here, especially in a game like Game 1 tonight, where he's been hot over the past few games. He maybe started out cold in Game 7, but he's heated up throughout Game 7 and got hot later in that game. He's going to want to come out tonight in the Garden, in his home city. A kid from New York is going to want to show up in the Garden. And that's something that scares me. When you have a chip on your shoulder like a player like Halliburton did last year against the New York Knicks, it could be threatening. And Donovan Mitchell right now is the most threatening thing to the New York Knicks final appearance. It's the only thing left. It's the last stepping stone to a New York Knicks final appearance is Donovan Mitchell and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm terrified of Donovan Mitchell. But I think Jalen Brunson can keep up with him. And I think it comes down to those bench players or those non-star players. They're not all bench players because Mikhail's a starter, Josh Hart's a starter, Jared Allen on the other side's a starter. But it comes down to those non-star players. It comes down to those players who we feel like aren't guaranteed to drop 20 points per game. You know what I mean? If Evan Mobley could come out and have a 28-point performance tonight in Game 1, Donovan Mitchell doesn't need to drop 45. But Jalen might have to drop 35. It's going to be a big series for the Knicks. It's going to be a big series for the Knicks. And this is a Cleveland team that until that Detroit series, until you saw a game, those 2 road games that they were able to win in the Detroit series, they didn't win a single road game in the Toronto series. They didn't. They didn't win a single road game in the Toronto series. They're 2-5 on the road so far this season, or so far in the playoffs. It's just like when I look at this series, I'm a lot more worried than I was of the Cleveland Cavaliers going into the playoffs. I've now said that multiple times. I know I'm repeating myself, blah, blah, blah. But you're going to need Karl Anthony Towns to step up. And he has. But you're going to need a player like you're going to need him to match Evan Mobley offensively. And you can't have him be a cone defensively against Jared Allen, who's able to work in the post. Jared Allen's known as a defensive player, but he's not he's not as inept offensively as some people may think he is. Some people lead him on to be. He's kind of hidden down there because he's not. You have Evan Mobley, who's a better scorer and able to create his own shots. He's not. Jared Allen's not necessarily able to create space and hitting post fades on you. But he gets a lot of goddamn offensive rebounds. He's good at putting the ball back up, and he's good if he gets the ball down low, making a quick spin move, creating a little bit of space with his elbows and just putting that ball up. Oh, that's not good. My frame rate dropped immensely. I hope I don't disconnect. Let's hope. We're coming back. We're reviving. I mean, it's just the truth, man. Knicks in 5. I don't disagree with that. I was about to get to the predictions. I don't hate Knicks in 5. I think, like I was just saying earlier before with the whole the struggling of Cleveland on the road, I think if you can protect home court tonight, that'd be the biggest thing for the New York Knicks. I think the biggest thing for the Knicks tonight would be trying to protect home court. You could protect home court, Knicks in 5. Because I think you could steal one in Cleveland. I think the Knicks could 100% steal one in Cleveland. Like, I think the Knicks 110% could steal one in Cleveland. It's tonight. Tonight's the scary night. If I'm going to break it down and really put my predictions, if the Knicks win tonight, the Knicks are winning in 5. I'm that confident. If the Knicks win game 1 tonight, and especially if they win it handily, they're winning in 5. Because they could easily take a game in Cleveland. I think the Knicks could easily take a game in Cleveland. It's the 9 days rest that scares me. The Knicks haven't played since the 10th. The 9 days rest, the Cleveland coming out of 2 physical series and being the team that has come out on top and been out physical. If you want to compare it to fighting and UFC and that whole realm, they just went through 2 5-round fights and won by grueling decision, but looked way better at the end. Won that 5th round just doof, especially on the Detroit Pistons. So with how hot that Cleveland Cavaliers team is, it scares me with them coming into New York tonight. It's when you really break it down, it's and we also can't deny that there's no more pressure on any team in the NBA than there is on the New York Knicks to go win a championship right now. I mean, we're talking about the New York media. There's no fan base that has as much pressure to go win a championship than the New York Knicks do, or no team in sports, honestly. I could argue that I don't think that there is a single team in sports that has more pressure to go win a championship right now than the New York Knicks do. And that is something that also now will play into the series. Now you're here, you're one step away against a hot Cleveland Cavaliers team that has Donovan Mitchell you don't think Donovan Mitchell, after not getting traded to the Knicks, after coming out and publicly wanting to be a New York Knick, telling the entire world he wanted to be a Knick when he was all up for trade, and he ends up in Cleveland, you don't think he wants to be the guy that puts a stop on the hope of the New York Knicks making a finals appearance? For the first time since Patrick Ewing and John Starks? He 100% wants to be that guy. And the pressure that is on right now of this New York Knicks team, they need to hold up to it. There's no other option. Because when you think about it, if the New York Knicks don't make the finals this year, and okay, maybe they play okay. Maybe they play decent. You're trying to tell me the whole media isn't going to sit there and argue to you that you should blow this team up to go get Giannis? Giannis? I don't even want to butcher his last name. I can't pronounce it. I don't even want to try. But you won't want to sit there and argue that everyone, WFAN, the Instagram, Twitter, wherever, the New York Times, you don't think they're going to be like wanting to blow this team up if they don't go make a finals appearance this year? Especially if a player like Karl Anthony Towns doesn't go perform? Especially if a player like Mikal Bridges doesn't go out there and perform? So the pressure that is on this Knicks team is immense, and they have to execute. They have to execute. And now looking back at that game last night, the discussion of can they beat the West is a whole different discussion. I don't know if they can. Yes, we saw the Spurs in the NBA Cup, and they won that game. That's one game. Do I think we get swept by the Spurs? No. Do I think we get swept by the Thunder? Maybe. And I know they just lost game one, but I think the Knicks can maybe steal a game against the Thunder, maybe two. I think if they play the Spurs, they go 7. So, I think there's an opportunity for a championship against the Spurs. I'm terrified of OKC, of SGA, and, in a double overtime loss, you got Caruso dropping, 41 last night? That team is deep. That team scares me. San Antonio scares me just because of the alien. That's just that goddamn, as Flight likes to call him, Victor Wembanyama's, Wembanyama is just, oh my God. Yeah, that dude's an alien. That 3 that he hit in overtime to extend the lead or tie the game or whatever it was. I can't remember if it was to take the lead or force overtime. But he hit that 3 in the fourth quarter like it was Steph. He just spotted up. He set his feet like bang. And then he's all over the court, just blocking every 2 left. Hey, boom, boom, boom. Oh my! Victor Wembanyama is an alien, bro. He scares me. A Karl Anthony Towns Victor Wembanyama matchup is terrifying to me. That is absolutely terrifying to me in the NBA Finals. But a Knicks Finals appearance is on a plate in front of us. They just have to execute. I don't want to say anything's guaranteed in life because nothing is. If I would have thought anything was guaranteed in life, I would have told you we would have beaten the Pacers last year. I would have sat there and told you we would have beaten the Pacers last year. 110%. I would have sat there, looked at you, and said, if there's guarantees in life, we're beating the Pacers. And we did not. So we could 100% lose this series to the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I'm more comfortable against them than I would have been against Detroit. But how they looked in Game 7, that's a team that I can't say that I'm not scared of. I can't say that the performance that Cleveland put on Sunday night didn't worry me. It impressed me. It worries me. And I think that they could come out there and really, really, really surprise the Knicks tonight after, the Knicks got shaky legs after 9 days rest. You haven't played since May 10th. You haven't played in 9 days. It could be good. It could be terrible. You could look at it at the side of, they're going to have fresh legs. You could look at it at the side of, this team's hot. This team just played 2 great 7-game series and woo, winning Game 7 by 30, and then you got to play 2 days later, go to the Garden with the biggest crowd in you could imagine. the biggest stage possible, you could come out here as Cleveland and really, really quiet New York down. And the thought of that being in the Cleveland locker room scares me. I can't deny that. The thought of that being in the Cavaliers locker room is what worries me. The momentum that they have is what worries me. It's not the on-paper matchup. I think the on-paper matchup was obviously the Pistons that was more scary. And I was happy to see the Cavs win Game 7. But if the Cavs could come out and steal Game 1 tonight. And if you do, if you're the New York Knicks, you can't go cower in the corner because you had 9 days rest. You got to come out in Game 2 and punch them in the face. You know, you were able to do it to Philadelphia in Game 1. You went out there and won by 30. You won by 30 in Game 1 against Philadelphia. So I would hope you go do the same tonight. But there's a chance Cleveland comes in there hot and wins Game 1. You can't let that make you cower in the corner if Cleveland does come out here hot tonight. And even if they come out here, like, I don't even want to say the game. I don't want to even put that far in advance. Because you could come out here, and if they come out hot, you could regroup yourself. You know, if they have a hot first quarter, you have to be able to regroup yourself. You know, they're going to be physical. They're going to come out there. They're going to want to punch you in the mouth. They're going to be physical. You're going to have to take a breath if they come out hot, hot, hitting shots. You're going to have to take a deep breath, talk amongst yourselves, and go, let's punch them right back in the face. Let's hit them right back in the mouth. And don't let the 9 days rest be the reason you fall down 1-0 at home in the series. Don't let that happen. Because as of right now, you have the chance to do something that hasn't been done since the 70s. Since Willis and Frazier, man. You have the chance to make a final, something since hasn't happened since this man on my shirt was wearing a Knicks jersey. Since John Starks and Patrick Ewing, we haven't seen a finals. My entire life. This is the biggest Knicks series of my entire life. You have to come out here tonight and punch this team in the goddamn mouth. OG Anunoby has to come out there and be the same dude he was before the hamstring rupture. Jalen Brunson's got to come out there and show him that Donovan Mitchell, this ain't your city. You didn't come here. We didn't need you because we had me. That's why we didn't go get you, because we had a scoring guard that could take over a game. New Yorkers got to be loud. That garden has to be popping. I know it sucks that people like me and people like you are being sold out of this game. It pisses me off so much. I wish I could afford to be at that stadium tonight. I wish I could afford it. But for those of you that can, for those of you that are laying down the bands to be at Madison Square Garden tonight, you guys need to literally be like Seattle Seahawks fans call it. You need to be the sixth man on the court. You need to be in their heads. You need to have James Harden chirping back at, or you need to have getting James Harden's head. And you need to make sure that they know that they are playing a team that even after 9 days rest can come out there and punch you in the mouth. This is the biggest Knicks series since the 90s. This is the biggest Knicks series. This is bigger than last year because you lost last year. So this is bigger. This is more important. There's more pressure. And you have to go out there and execute if you're the New York Knicks. You have no other option. You look like the best team in basketball right now. Yes, I just said how much the West scares me, but I agree with that statement. As much as the West scares me, And the matchups of the OKC Thunder scare me. And Wembanyama, how good he is, and how much he's all over the floor, left and right, and he's an alien. Yes, it scares me. But the Knicks are playing the best basketball I have ever seen on a New York Knicks court. This is the best New York Knicks basketball I've ever seen. You're completely healthy. You're getting OG Anunoby back tonight. The city is popping. So come out here in game one and smack him in the face. Keep the momentum rocking. That's what you got to do. You're 8-2 in the playoffs right now. You've played 10 playoff games. You haven't lost since game 3 in Atlanta. Turn up. That's how hype I am. That was natural. I didn't even mean that. That's what I used to yell back in the games. Back in the day when I used to play football. Back when I was a football player. Back in high school. I'm hyped. And the rest of the Knicks fan base should be too. Because I haven't experienced something like this in my entire life, and I cannot wait. Whew. But I mean, as the Knicks are surging, the Knicks are playing well. The Yankees, on the side of my Yankees fandom, the conversation has not been as hot. May has been interesting for the New York Yankees. It was definitely a good start to the month of May. You swept the Orioles. You started the month definitely well. Since then, it's definitely been a struggle, and there's so much I could start with, but I think the point I have to make has to be the most recent one. Let's go back to the bottom of the 10th inning against the New York Mets. Yeah. I take that back. Let's not talk about that moment. Anthony Volpe no longer deserves the Yankee jersey. I'm going to look in the camera and say that sentence from my heart again. Anthony Volpe no longer deserves to be in a Yankee jersey. I have sat there on the point. Excuse me. I have sat there on the point time and time again that as bad as Anthony Volpe is, give Lombard time. But now we have Caballero. And yes, he's injured, and I know he'll come back soon. Now we have this, now we have that. Anthony Volpe has had 2 errors already. He's played 8 games. 2 errors that have cost us baseball games. I'll give the kid credit. He was able to get some walks in the Mets series. Then I'll talk about the relief pitching soon. But Anthony Volpe needs to be called down immediately. Call up Lombard until Caballero comes back. Call him up. And I will be honest. I wanted to title this segment, The Yankees Have an Anthony Volpe Problem. And Vin, you're saying it in the chat right now. But the problem stemmed deeper than just Anthony Volpe. It stems towards the bottom of the lineup. The Yankees have 4 players right now who get a good amount of time, who are batting what I like to call, and some people in WFAN like to call as well, they're batting on the interstate. You got J.C. Escara batting 182. You got Wells batting 173. You got Ryan McMahon batting 190. You have Trent Grisham batting 169. And almost on the interstate, but battling on and off, you have Jazz batting .217. You can't have that. Trent Grisham, let me start there. Trent Grisham is the oddest one of all of them. Trent Grisham can no longer lead off. I'll lead it there. I don't want to say Trent Grisham can't play anymore, because Trent Grisham somehow, while batting as poorly as he has, and having the on-base percentage as poorly as he has, is still on pace for a 100 RBI season. Somehow, some way. Somehow, some way, Trent Grisham is still on pace for 100 RBIs. So, okay. Maybe I could take a breath with the batting average and some of the statistics of Trent Grisham. The problem for the Yankees right now, they have two unsolvable problems at the moment. They are at the moment unsolvable problems that, you see the front office on one side trying to do some things about. On the other side, they have there is no open solution at this exact moment. And we'll start with the problem at catcher with Austin Wells and JC Escarra. You just have two backup catchers as your rotating catchers. They're not. Neither player is good enough to be a consistent MLB catcher. They're both. JC Escarra is a minor league player. I'll start there. JC Escarra is a minor league catcher. JC Escarra is not a major league player, and you could argue the same thing for Austin Wells at this point for the way that he's been playing this season. That you have two catchers on the Yankees that are minor league catchers. They are not MLB quality catchers. But when you look at the landscape of the Yankees farm system and who's out there and there's nothing really available now for the New York Yankees at the catcher position. You have some rumors of I can't remember who it was. Who was it? I can't remember. I want to keep saying Shea Langoliers, but it's not him. But you have some. You might have some people available at the trade deadline, but I mean, yeah, Vin. Obviously, I see it in the chat. Sorry, I was looking stuff up. I didn't see it before, but yeah, I see what you're saying in the chat. You can move. Obviously, we've seen it before. You can move Ben Rice to catcher, which is always an option, but I don't love the option there. And there's no inclination or any hints of the Yankees wanting to move Ben Rice back to catcher, even though he can catch and he has caught before. They seem to want to just stick him at first base as Paul Goldschmidt gets older and starts to, really hit his dog days of his career, even though he's a former MVP. I think they've really committed to the idea of Ben Rice arguably being the everyday first baseman for the New York Yankees. I think you just have to be patient. It's early in the season. I'm going to be honest there when it comes to the Yankees and the catching position. And you have to just look at it and go, let's just look at what's out there and, and see what we can approach at the deadline as we start to get to the middle of the summer. Let's see who may become available on those teams that maybe are struggling and might want a few prospects, who maybe might want an Anthony Volpe to turn back up or an Austin Wells that we could give them for a certified everyday MLB catcher. Now, on the other side of relief pitching, now that is something that outside of Bednar, where I don't know who you go find to close, I see the attempt in the front office now calling up different prospects throughout, not calling up Yuri De Los Santos again with a few injuries and this and that. And they're trying to find new arms in the farm system that maybe can be effective in the major leagues with, people like Jake Bird not being effective, people like Camilo Doval being on an insanely big slump, somebody like Bednar being on an insanely big slump right now. And Bednar's someone who thrives in those situations where even if you go back throughout his career, he has had his ups and downs consistently for his entire career. There was a point in his career on the Pirates he got called back down to the minors. So um, he is definitely having a bad season, and I'm not someone who necessarily wants to completely write him off yet, but maybe going to get somebody. And again, being patient right now and looking at maybe what could be available for you at the deadline, but also looking what is available for you in the farm system, which there's a lot more for the Yankees when it comes to relief pitchers than it does for the Yankees at the catching position. Um, Maybe go break it and go look at what's available and do what you did last year. Camilo Doval's been up and down, yes, but it wasn't a terrible move. Blackburn didn't work out for you last year, but go out and get it. I think a temporary solution, if you look at it, like you got, like Matt and Vin, you guys are saying in the chat over there. By the way, I am posting this on Apple Podcasts later today and Spotify Podcasts. So if you guys are listening over there, join us on YouTube, join the chat. I got the boys in there. Also, if the boys want to be here for the official announcement, sorry to get off topic of the Yankees, but I'll get back to them in a second. Tonight, 8 o'clock with the Knicks game. Hopefully, both of the boys in the chat will be here. I know at least Vin will. We'll be doing a watch along for the Knicks game, Yankee game as well. So tune in there, have fun. But back to what I was saying with the Yankees, and temporarily, I think you could definitely with Paul Goldschmidt playing well as of the moment, you can move Ben Rice over to catcher, but let me just look at the depth chart real quick, because when you really look at that's the problem with that too, is what you have to remember is baseball, the whole, I was just looking it up to make sure it was why I forgot my train of thought there, but the problem with throwing Paulie in there is it is an extra righty bat. So when you go against those lefty pitchers, there's that game there as well. With throwing Paul Goldschmidt in there, the Yankees don't have as many lefty bats as you want them to have sometimes. But sometimes they have a lot of lefty bats. So it goes back and forth. But especially in a game, a place like Yankee Stadium, it's just an advantage having that lefty at bat. But it's the Austin Wells, like I said, Austin Wells and JC Escobar, at the end of the day, they just aren't major league catchers, and you have to fix that problem. And you have to be patient on the way to fix that problem. But with Wells and both of them batting on the interstate, both of them batting under 200, you have no option of them, of one of them being a better bat and not being great in the field, and vice versa. One flip side, the one positive thing I can say about Austin Wells is he's great at calling pitches. He's great he's solid behind the plate. He's not bad at challenging pitches. He has an insanely high challenge success rate so far this season. So there's some positives to look at while we try to get through the hump, but I think the Yankees should be sitting there and starting to open their options up of who can they go get at the trade deadline, who can fill in at the catching position. And if maybe moving Ben Rice over one or two times when you want Paulie in that lineup as the righty bat to light a fire under Austin Wells' ass, I'm not against that. But as of right now, there's not a great solution. The relief pitching has to get a lot better as well for the Yankees. You saw it in the Mets series, both of those games, especially the last game with Bednar giving up the 3-run home run in the bottom of the ninth. You just can't have that happen. Bednar needs to step it up. Camilo Doval needs to step it up. Fernando Cruz needs to cut down on the walks. We need to have late game pitching. It was a problem last year, and it didn't seem like a problem this year. And people talked about the starting rotation. It's you need to have the late game pitching. It was a problem that everybody was scared of going into the year, and it seemed like it was going to be fine. You have a few shining stars in that back end of the rotation. You just can't use them all every day. You can't use Timmy Hill every day. You can't use those guys every day. You can't use, as bad as Fernando Cruz is with the walks, he leads the team in holds. You can't use him every day though. You can't use these guys every day. So the Yankees, you need to figure it out. 3 things. It's the top 3 things. The Yankees need to figure out Austin Wells. You need to figure out J.C. Escarra in the catching, or you need to figure out the 3 things the Yankees need to figure out. You need to figure out the catching problem. You need to figure out the late game pitching problem. And you need to figure out the Anthony Volpe problem. Now, this is a team at the end of the day that I'm talking about that's still a World Series contender, in my opinion. They're still the best team in the American League, in my opinion. They're just very top heavy at the moment. And you need the bottom half. You need Jazz to step it up as well. He's a big part of that. I'll heavily believe it. I have a number 13 jersey, and it's technically a Jazz jersey. As much as sometimes I like to call it an A-Rod jersey because it doesn't have the name on the back. It's a Jazz Chisholm jersey at the end of the day. I like Jazz. But he needs to step it up. He was a big part of that that late year World Series run. He was a big part of the team last year. You can't have him battling on and off the interstate. You need somebody like Jazz Chisholm who's batting at 5-6 in the middle of the lineup to be able to have those impact games. He can't be a black hole in your lineup. In the middle of your lineup, you can't have a black hole like Jazz Chisholm, especially someone who usually could be such a threat on the bases, who can get you, those stolen bases and get in a scoring position and have less of those runners left on. You can't have him batting .217. I think what I've seen out of Spencer Jones is I've seen him get better with every game. That first game he clearly tried. I think he's gotten better with every game. He's seeing the ball a lot better. He's not trying to really hit the ball out of the park. He's just trying to play baseball and trying to catch up to the game. I think more likely than not, when Dominguez is healthy, we probably see Dominguez come back up just because. But I think it's definitely a decision now for the Yankees to make because I don't think Spencer Jones has played bad at all. It's an extra lefty bat in the lineup, and I mean, if he hits a hot streak, he's solidified his spot. I think he's played just as good as Dominguez was playing and Garachik was playing before he was DFA'd and all of that. So when I really break that down, I think, yeah, I think he's been playing great. But I'm going to end the show there. Thank you guys for tuning in. I do want to end the show, though, with a special announcement while Vin is here in the chat and can go crazy that this announcement is becoming official as I talked to him last night about it. And I just got to stop being a procrastinator. I got to get this shit going, right, guys? If I want to do this, I love talking to you guys. I love the show, and I really want to start taking this channel and really building this into a media enterprise, a media corporation that I can really make a career out of. So with that, I'm going to end the show, but tune in, wait for the YouTube on Saturday, as I will have a new show starting on Saturday with a co-host who's in the chat consistently, my boy Vin LaFaro. So he will be my co-host on Saturdays, a mainly football-based show where we'll talk everything. We'll talk Knicks, Yankees, football, a little bit more of a debate style, first take style show. We could get some more other people on so I could have more of that guest vibe. It's not going to be live. It's going to be pre-recorded so I could edit it. We could have a little bit more fun with it. Maybe, make it a little less PG than I get on the lives here. But that is what's in the works. The TikTok, as I said, I'm going to clip this up tonight as well. Take the audio out. So look for me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. But so everybody stay tuned for that. Not only that, pack openings. I know you guys love those at the end of the show. Those are now going to rotate to video format. We are going to, I'm going to get bigger boxes, stretch it out. They're not going to happen every week. It's going to more be like 1 to 2 a month. But we're going to get bigger boxes for hopefully better pulls of a YouTube video. So stay tuned for the YouTube later this week for the pack undoing. Stay tuned for the new show on Saturday. I will see you guys then. Until then, go New York. Go New York. Go. Let's go Knicks, baby. Game 1 tonight. I will see you guys tonight, actually, for that live stream. Tune in 8 o'clock for the watch along. Peace out.